Downtown Whiteville. It's a great place for a greasy hamburger at one of the local grills, and a place for young people to cruise on the weekends. Some people go into the same stores every morning. Like clockwork, you can see them go from shop to shop. Not to buy anything, but just to check in, making sure that everyone is doing alright. Also sharing some local gossip, the word on the street. But on April 20th, 2000, word spread that the President of the United States would be in town. That was something that many people could not believe. Did you ever believe that the President would be in Whiteville, either of you?
No.
No, not at all.
As a matter of fact.
What was your first reaction when you found out that the President would be in town?
Well, I was kind of actually surprised that he was, and kind of questioned whether he was really coming or not.
Heard it at work one day last week, maybe Thursday.
And what was your initial reaction?
Gosh, he's coming to a little town like Whiteville, but I was glad that he was to show that we can be, put on the map.
Your initial reaction was what?
Wow. Bill Clinton coming to Whiteville.
But after everyone's shock and surprise ended, preparations began at once. At first, the location of the president's speech was not released. Many ideas were kicked around. Advanced planners considered the high school auditorium, football stadium, fairgrounds, and even a horse arena. But in the end, the historic Whiteville train depot was chosen as the site for the event. A campaign had been mounting in the community for a while to restore the downtown depot, but the project hadn't materialized before Mr. Clinton's visit, so a rush job was ordered. The city and county works departments pulled out all the stops. This suddenly became the top priority, with all workers and equipment ready to get the job done. And of course, where the president goes, so does the Secret Service. They arrived in Whiteville days before the actual event, taking every security precaution available. Buildings were inspected, security cameras were placed on rooftops, and dozens of new telephone lines were wired into a nearby office complex. City officials were also swarming on the scene, armed with cell phones, ready to tackle huge logistical hurdles.
Well, it's been a lot of work. Luckily, Whiteville's got good city employees, but just looking at the depot, it's a lot cleaner today than it was this morning, and it's only Monday afternoon, so I've only been working on it for about 5 or 6 hours.
What kind of preparations have your teams had to work on this past week?
Well, basically a lot, dealing with from electrical to stage moving to chair moving to securing sites to sweeping areas, making areas safe and secure. A lot of technical work in regard to wiring and getting the facilities ready to be used for into half power.
And we have people from the Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol, and the Secret Service agents. There are only 2 locations in which you can come through to get in this area where the president will be, and you have to go through the metal detector to get in this area. We just try to have as many law enforcement as we do spectators.
Is there anything you'll be looking out for, or?
Of course, we'll be looking out for anything suspicious. We don't have any reason to think there'll be any problem, and we hope there's not. This is the first time that we've ever had anything like this to happen, in Whiteville, and we would certainly hate to have a problem.
What kind of preparations did you have to make for the president's arrival here in Whiteville?
We've been working with the Secret Service and different the White House Advance Party team since about Friday. We've had to bring in extra personnel that we don't normally work. And we called surrounding departments and had them on standby. We had a lot of EMS to support this activity.
It really has been a team effort from everybody. Our Whiteville crew, Columbus County, the Sheriff's Department, the Highway Patrol, the Recs Department, everybody. Everybody's just pitched in. In fact, I was talking to one of the gentlemen who was here with Secret Service, and he said that he had just never worked with a town that people were as willing to help and to pitch in as our folks were, which made me feel very proud.
Gravel was laid, chairs were set out for VIPs, and plenty of flowers were planted. Then the night before the big event, the stage on which the president would speak was constructed. Secret Service agents didn't want the press to take detailed pictures, though, in an effort to conceal information from people who may want to harm the commander-in-chief. The podium was then wheeled out to mark exactly where Mr. Clinton would speak the next day. And the day started early for some. Eager folks waited in long lines before 9 o'clock in the morning in hopes of catching a close-up view. The lines moved slowly. Everyone had to go through metal detectors, and spectators were told to leave objects like mace and pepper spray in their car. There were no security incidents, however, except for one man found with a pocket knife at a downtown checkpoint. The Secret Service checked everything, especially when some people tried to bring a gift to the president.
Did you think you would have any security problems getting it through?
No, I certainly expected it to be checked. It would have to be. It's normal.
Okay, is there anything that would be potentially hazardous or no?
It's little trinket things like cups and sort of advertising things, but it's also some seashells from the shore and a license plate that has the North Carolina lighthouses on it. So.
Her gift was checked by a Secret Service agent who took the bag and later gave it to a White House staffer, perhaps to pass on to the president. Like everywhere Mr. Clinton goes, the media is sure to follow, and that was the case in Whiteville. TV stations and newspapers from all over the states of North and South Carolina covered the event. The president also has an inner press pool which covers every visit he makes. The local media were constantly competing against each other for information. One thing everyone wanted to know was who would have the honor of cooking for the president. It turned out that the owner of a popular local restaurant was the chosen one.
City Hall gave me a call and told me that the president was coming, obviously, and asked me if I'd be willing to fix a couple of things for him. I said, sure, I'll be glad to.
A lot of things, though. Like,
yeah.
What is he himself?
He requested a fresh basket of whole fruit with decaf coffee, and I was told he drinks a lot of decaf coffee, so and black. And then he and his staff wanted low-fat foods, finger foods. So basically meat and cheese tray, a lot of fresh local strawberries from a couple of local growers here in Chadbourne and Whiteville, and pretzels with some dip. Meat and cheese tray, cookie tray for those that have the sweet tooth, a little bit of fat there. But most importantly, our famous chicken salad, tuna salad, and seafood salad that we make fresh daily at our restaurant.
Between the high security and all the media attention, the locals were surprised as soon as they walked up.
Well, I kind of knew that it'd be a whole bunch of people out here, but I didn't think it'd be this many people.
Well, it's really impressive to see all the news trucks and FBI truck and all the spaces from all over, not only North Carolina, but other places outside the state.
These Florence TVs here. It's just a very historic occasion that probably never happened to this city again, or to Columbus County.
The high school JROTC was on scene to present the colors, and the band was there to entertain the crowd. Because people were encouraged to get to the depot early, most people were downtown before the president even touched down in Whiteville. While the crowd was still gathering, Mr. Clinton toured a local business, Remote Data Systems, where he was given a demonstration of the company's groundwater testing device and high-speed internet connections. The president then participated in a roundtable discussion on the site with state and local business owners. After the meeting, he hopped back into the motorcade and started the trip to downtown Whiteville, where the excitement was building. The special agents were scoping out the area, helicopters were doing last-minute flybys, and spectators were scrambling to get a good view. That's when the motorcade pulled up. The national press and White House aides piled out and took their places. Then it was the moment that everyone had been waiting for. The crowd went wild. Many people couldn't believe that this was actually happening. Then Whiteville Mayor Ann Jones, North Carolina Governor Jim Hunt, and President Bill Clinton spoke on rural communities and the future of the internet.
And now it's our challenge today from both the public and the private sectors to take that energy, that faith, and that devotion to ignite the economic fire right here in eastern North Carolina and indeed throughout America. Prosperity abounds in many parts of our country, but some have not shared in that success, and we can bridge the technological gap the digital divide by investing in education and in technology and in people.
In North Carolina, we are truly on the verge of becoming two North Carolinas. One that's urban and rich and growing with great opportunity, low unemployment, and great infrastructure. And the other that is urban and poor and receding with little hope for lots of people, high unemployment, and grossly inadequate infrastructure. That is something that we just can't allow to continue.
But Whiteville is a town that needs to be revitalized, doesn't it? We need more jobs. We need more opportunities. The fact is, we have had tough times. Erskine Bowles was right. We've had textile mills and plants closed down. Some of you here today lost your jobs and your family members. We know what's happened on the farms. I live on a tobacco and cattle farm. I know that tobacco quotas have been cut by 50%. When I was a boy, I remember my road being paved out in the country. It connected us up. Some of you can remember when the telephones came, can't you? They connected us up. I know when electricity came, your great EMC here, that connected us up. The question is now, what's it going to take for us to be connected up so we can have the jobs again?
So what I've tried to do is to say to people with money, look, I want you to have the same incentives to invest in rural North Carolina, rural Arkansas, the inner cities, the Native American reservations. I want you to have the same incentives to invest in poor areas in America we give you today to invest in poor areas of Latin America or Asia or Africa. Look to America and the new markets here. You hear all about this digital divide. Some of you got a computer and some don't. And even if you do, maybe you use the internet with your telephone line and maybe you don't. But what I want you to understand is that the internet is the fastest growing means of communication in all human history. When I became president, listen to this, when I became president 7 years and 3 months ago, there were 50 sites on the World Wide Web. Today there are 50 million. And what we're here to tell you is, number one, we believe in rural North Carolina and in rural America, internet access ought to be just as likely as telephone access. And number two, you ought to be able to use it in the fastest possible way. And number three, if you can, it'll mean more jobs, more businesses, higher incomes, and more opportunities. Why is that? We're standing here in front of the railroad station. You know what the railroad brought to the rural South? You know what the highways brought to the rural South? You know what electricity brought to the rural South? What did they do? They helped to make it possible for people to live out here in the country and move back and forth and make a living. But we never quite caught up in rural America, did we? Why? Because no matter how you cut it, no matter how many roads we had, or how many power lines we had, or how many trains ran through our town, we were still a long way away from everybody else, and it took time to get from here to there, wherever there was. Isn't that right? So most people who kept on living in rural America did it because it's a great place to live. It's a nice way to live. President Johnson left Washington, D.C. and went home to this little old town in Texas where he was from, and they said, how can you bear to live in this little one-horse town after living in Washington, D.C. for 25 years? And he looked at Walter Cronkite and he said, I never forget this as long as I live. He said, I can bear to live here because here people know when you're sick and they care when you die. So we live here. But with all these improvements, you never quite caught up. Now here's what I believe and why I'm spending the last year of my term in the White House trying to build support among Republicans and Democrats for giving these extra incentives to invest in these areas and making sure we close the digital divide and every one of your classrooms and every one of your businesses has access to really high-speed service on the internet. Because what does the internet do that the railroads didn't do, that the highways didn't do, that a rural airport didn't do, that electricity didn't do? What does the internet do? It collapses time and distance. We have never been able to do that. That's what I want you to think about. If you've never been on a computer in your life, I want you to think about that when you leave here. It collapses time and distance. Therefore, for the first time in my lifetime, we have a chance to move more people out of poverty and unemployment and lack of access to businesses more quickly in rural America, isolated inner cities, and Native American reservations than at any time in the history of this country. And when people see you on television tonight, I want them to think about this town abolishing time and distance because of what Jim Hunt, the telephone companies, and others have done to provide broad-based internet service to you through this broadband. That's what I want them to think about. So a long time from today, I want you to remember more than that the president finally came to your hometown. I want you to remember why we came here. Because of your governor and Erskine Bowles and these other leaders, we have a chance to collapse time and distance and to give you your chance to live your dreams. Thank you, and God bless you.
Then the president went into the crowd to shake hands, but as he reached out and touched the people of this community, many wondered what would come of his visit.
I hope he will see the needs we have and maybe address our needs as well as other rural communities in the United States.
It means for the people of Columbus County particularly that maybe there will be some attention given to some of our economic problems, and by drawing attention to that and pointing out some of the ways that we can solve them, it might bring about certainly a quicker solution.
Our goal is that when these folks leave town, we have something tangible like cheaper access to this broadband technology that would enable, whether it's out at the hospital and telemedicine, which is that notion of being able to train, or going down to the community college and taken a course and having the professor talk to you from Chapel Hill or Duke or whatever.
After mingling with the locals for over 10 minutes, it was time to go, and Mr. Clinton was whisked away from sight. Many people lined the streets waiting to see the motorcade leave, and after the president did leave, the streets were flooded with people, but quickly cleared out. On their way, some people picked up t-shirts being sold on the sidewalk, but most were ready to get home and let all of the excitement just sink in. The stage and lights were quickly taken down, and TV reporters wrapped up their live coverage. And as the sun set on the streets of Whiteville, only the cleanup crew remained. All the crowds had gone, and the president was on his way to Arkansas. Will his visit give a boost to the economy of Whiteville? Only time can tell. His memorable speech may just be a blur now to the people of this community, but they will never forget the day the president came to town.